Hello and welcome back to the channel. I'm ShyWizard. I'm going to do another tutorial here, or this is going to be basically an alternative, possible alternative method of doing a DEM for Farmer Simulator 19. This does actually include a method of making borders as well. This is on the Farmer Boys modding site. Might be available elsewhere, but this is where I've got it from. A lot of information to go through here. I'm going to be skipping about a little bit because it will take far too long to read all of this. You can open this up. You will need, if you go to this site, you will need a login to access the forums, totally free. Just create a login and you'll be good to go, and then go into the forums and look for WrinkleysRule and you'll be able to find the tutorial. Really well laid out tutorial, but it does contain a lot of information, so you will need to read through this multiple times, I would imagine. I've had to read through it quite a few times to get my head around some parts, and unfortunately I am restricted on certain areas of this because I don't have Photoshop, and the tutorial is based around, some parts of it are based around using Photoshop when it comes to the image editor. I'm using Paint.net and GIMP. If you have Photoshop, you should be good to go with that, because as I say, it is based on that when it comes to image editing and stuff like that. There are some other different softwares here you'll need. There's an item zip which is right at the bottom of this particular tutorial. If you download that and put it on your desktop, extract it, you'll get some files and things in here which you will need later on to work with various different parts of the tutorial. And inside there's also a DEM converter which has been modified, so we'll look at that a bit later on when we get to it. Blank 2K starter map. This is actually based around Ravenport. The tutorial is based around Ravenport. So if you're using Felsbrunn or a different map that's got some different file names, you will need to rename what we create in the tutorial here, or what is created in the tutorial as we go through it, to suit the map, the blank map that you're going to be working with. If you're not interested in the tutorial part of it for the borders, then you can ignore all that information and then move on. You'll need to obtain an SRTM. There's some links here, and there's another one down here which is what I've used. This is, I think, possibly more to do with the European side of things. There's some up here around the USA and other places, but you can do Google searches for SRTM downloads, find whatever you need to find there, and then go through the motions of however that site requires you to download whatever you need to download. But this is pretty straightforward, this one. As I say, it's from what I could tell, there's a bit more to do with the European side of what I've looked at anyway, but it might have other parts of the world included in it, I don't know. But anyway, so if you are going to use the OpenDEM, really straightforward. Again, the instructions here are very clear, so you just click on the Open European DEM thingy, and then click on one arc sec tiles, and you'll get something like this. It won't have all the street names and everything on it. To get those, you need to click on a little checkbox which is for the OpenStreetMap data, and then you'll get street names, city names and so on. Make it a bit easier to locate your location where you want to set your map on, or set up your farm on, or whatever else. And all you do then is find the tile that you want to work with, and left click and drag a box out, and once you release the mouse button, it will give you a pop-up with a download file, and then you download that to your desktop. If you've got an area that's going to be crossing over multiple tiles, then you will require microDEM to merge those tiles together. I'm not going to get into that side of things. Alternatively, you will also require microDEM if the max height difference of the area you're basing everything on is greater than 255, because the max height that we're allowed to work within the Giants system is 255 meters. So if you're working on an area that's got a maximum height difference greater than 255 meters, you'll need microDEM to rebalance everything out. And WrinkleysRule has included some math calculations of how to work out those types of things and set them up correctly to work with the Giants engine and the map and all the other stuff. So yeah, so once you've done all of that, you basically need to mark out your areas on your farm. Again, if you want to work with borders, you can do that and set up some different parts. I will be looking at all of that. I might do that in another video, I haven't decided yet. Possibly might do the DEM first and come back to that part later on, because again there's quite a lot of information here that we need to go through. So I think what I'm going to do first of all is concentrate solely on the main farm area first to get the DEM sorted out, and then I'll do another video for the border stuff. I think that might work a little bit better. So we need to open up Google Earth and then mark out some areas. There's a couple of different options that we want to change first within Google Earth to make our lives a little bit easier. So in Google Earth, open up the terrain exploration settings with tools and then options, and set this to 0.01. so get Google Earth, download it, install it, and whatever else if you haven't already. And then tools, options, and in the 3D view come down to the terrain area, elevation exploration, and set the scale here to 0.01. The other thing I actually found was really annoying: when I was zooming in and out, the system by default automatically tilts and zooms the camera to bring you into, like, you know, ground level and whatever else. And that was really frustrating, because when you actually take snapshots of different parts, you will need to turn things on and off and move the map around a little bit here, there and everywhere. But you want to be looking at it straight down and true north, so that it all lines up correctly. And if you zoom in slightly and it then does this, you've got to reset it and then do all the business, and that can screw things up really badly, and you'll get mismatched images and they won't line up properly, and then it will just cause more problems later on down the road. So we don't want any of that if we can help it. So what I also did in the tools options, come over to navigation. By default it's set to automatically tilt and enter ground level view, but I changed it to do not automatically tilt while zooming, and then just click apply and OK. And then as you zoom in and out, it will keep the tilt level looking straight down all the time. It won't keep doing this on you. And again, as I say, that for me made my life just so much easier. So what I'm going to be doing is basing the map here around Old Sodbury. Many years ago I went to an Old Sodbury sort out, which is a Land Rover sort out, when I did a lot of green laning with the old Series 2 and Series 3 Land Rovers. I used to go to a lot of these sorts of things to get old Land Rover parts, and Sodbury, the Old Sodbury sort out was fantastic. You could trade different parts, buy parts, sell parts, all sorts of different things. And yeah, so as I was sort of looking around the map to get an area to base this all on, I came across Old Sodbury and thought, yeah, I've been there. Now I don't remember much of the place, if I'm honest. So it was a long time ago, probably 20 years ago when I went there. So I can't say for sure what I'm going to end up will look like Old Sodbury, but hopefully it will do it credit. So this is the area that I'm going to be basing everything on. So what I'm going to do is basically move my camera so it's literally pointing straight down, and then I'm going to click on the little N on the compass, which will make sure I'm true north. And then what I can do is start to add in some lines here. So what we want to do is add in some 2.1k horizontal and vertical lines. I think I actually tried to say horizontal and vertical in one word then. But yeah, we want to make a 2.1k horizontal and vertical line to make the shape of a cross, which will give us something like this, hopefully, to mark out our area. And then the actual 0.1k, according to what it's saying here, is to allow for better placement later. I'm going to assume that is more to do with if you're creating a border. So if you're, again, not interested in a border, you might want to decrease that to 2k exact and not 2.1k. I'm going to go for 2.1 because, as I say, potentially in another video I might actually go through the process of adding a border in as well, and setting all that up and how to do all that sort of stuff according to the tutorial. But if you're not interested in the border, possibly you might want to forgo the extra 0.1k and just go for 2k, up to you entirely. See what you get out of that. If you go for the 2.1k even without a border, it will give you a bit more room to kind of play with, I guess. And then you could set up your actual you know, invisible borders back a little bit from the edge of the map, and you know, set it up that way. You know, the extra 0.1k will give you a little bit of breathing room to kind of play around with, I guess, if you wanted to go down that road. But entirely up to you. 2.1 or 2, it will work just the same, in my opinion. But if you are going to do the borders, then potentially I would suggest to go with the 2.1k, because it will give you that extra little bit of breathing room to set the borders up and everything else. So what we're going to do then is add in our lines. So find your area that you want to work with and then just go from there. Tools, ruler, make sure you're set to line and the actual map length is set to kilometers, and then just kind of work from there. So if I kind of say I want to cut this through the middle here somewhere like that, now 2 kilometers, when you look at this you think, oh yeah, I'm going to come from here all the way down here. No, it's not as far as you think. So let's sort of say maybe I want to include possibly some parts over here as well, so because there's a nice farm area over here, so I want to do that. So what I might do is actually do the horizontal one first and just see how far I get with that. So let's kind of zoom in a bit maybe, because there's a nice farm area just here I want to include. So maybe we'll go from there and then go out. So that's already 3 and we're down to 2, which is the roundabouts there. So that potentially is not going to be far enough for me to work with, which is a bit of a shame. So let's kind of come over this way a little bit further then maybe. Well, we'll just see how far it actually does take us. So if I go out to there, somewhere like that, and then just get your degrees set about right. So for this, for a straight line, 270 degrees, and we've got 210 on there. That's going to include a little bit of the old Salisbury and the farm here. Hopefully that should be okay for that side of things. Now we want to save this one before we create a new one, so we're going to save that one, and I'm just going to call this 2k horizontal. Now we want our vertical one, so we're going to go tools, ruler, and then just kind of try and find the middle and cut it in half somehow. So let's kind of say maybe there. How much is that going to go down? So we possibly want to be up a little bit further maybe. So let's kind of go somewhere maybe like that. See how far that comes down. That's not too bad. And we want to be 180 or as close as we can get it. Bang on. Fantastic. So then we should be able to include this area here, hopefully. So that should be fine. So we'll have some fields down here, a little bit there. Yep, that should be okay. Hopefully. We'll see how that works out. So we'll save that one, and then this is going to be 2k vertical. And then we need to add in overlay. So we add in our overlay, which will give us something like this. So we'll have a nice overlay over it like that to actually then work with that. This comes in the item zip. So if we go to the item zip, there's a area overlay image, which we're going to basically bring into Google Earth to give us this. So we go add image overlay, and then we need to actually bring in our files. So we go browse, go to wherever you've got that. I've got it on my desktop, items, area, and then we need to keep this open. So just chuck it up on your other screen if you've got one, move it to the side, whatever, because we can't edit this if this is closed. So if I click OK, that now becomes solid and we can't edit that anymore. So if you do that by mistake, just go right click, properties, and the window will reopen, and then you can move it around and edit what you need to edit. So all you do there is just basically get it somewhere centralized, and then grab the sides here, not the corners. If you move the corners, it will go out of whack. So just the middle of the sidebars here, and drag them in so that they fit. You might want to zoom in a bit to the area so you get it as close as you possibly can, something like that on that one. And then we'll do this one over here, so just move it over something like that, and then bring this one in something like that, and then this one something like that, and there we go. So we've now got quite a nice layout there, different roads and things like that leading to various different fields. We've now got our farm area just here, which is what I really wanted, this particular farm area. Now unfortunately, because of the way that I've actually done this, if we zoom right in, you can see this has got cows in this field here, but for game purposes, this particular area is more than adequate for cows. If I was to try and fill that whole field up with cows, knowing how the game works, it probably wouldn't work very well. So this is more than enough of an area for me to have cows in if I decide to follow along and keep it as close to the real life setup. And then we've got possibly some trees here which I can put in for forestry work and whatever else if I wanted to go down that road. So it kind of includes a bit of everything. Some more trees here possibly for some more forestry work there, and some more in there, and whatever else. So there's you know, an arrangement of different things that we can add in here, making the farm up. We've got some nice roads coming through, main roads that are going to come through. So yeah, now we've got our 2K set up and all is good. We can then click OK and close this one down, and that's all set up. And then you might want to rename this. It probably would be recommended, so you can call this according to as per the tutorial, name that 2K marker, because that's the marker that's going to give you a 2K square, so that makes sense. And then if you're going to do the borders, you'll make some different extra lines that will come out and all the rest of it. Again, I'm not going to do that in this particular video. I'll do that in another video, and I'll reset all this back up again, and we'll continue on with the borders. But for this particular video, I just want to concentrate on the DEM stuff, so we're not going to do that. So once we've got all of that, we rename it to 2K marker, which is what I've just done. So if you wish to move it again, right click and then click on properties as I showed you, and then you can move it around and do whatever else. Now, it does say here to add in a placement on the map, which will look like, does it give me an image like that, the little yellow pin, because when you add in the SRTM, Google Earth will automatically zoom right out. So if you don't add a placement marker like that, you might not be able to find the area that you've been working on very easily, but I'm pretty sure I can find old Sodbury again without too much problems, so I'm not going to add that in. But if you wanted to add it, by all means do so, and all you do there is just go add and then place marker, and it will put the place marker on the map and you can move that around to wherever you want to put it, and so forth. Again, like I said, I'm not going to do that. So this is talking about the border. For now, we're going to skip all that. So creating the DEMs, again, the border image I'm not going to do. The overlay images we will do, but border stuff I'm going to skip for this one. So if more than one SRTM is needed to cover your area, or the min-max difference is higher than 255, you'll need micro DEM to either merge them together or to ensure the correct shading between SRTMs, or readjust the min-max figures to allow for proper scaling of GE, as I said before. But I don't have that problem, so I'm not going to get into any of that stuff. And it says to avoid confusion, later on in the tutorial, some of the calculations are explained on how to set your min-max heights up and all the rest of it, so we won't do that either. We don't need to do that, but it is there if you require it. So we want to ensure our monitor is set to the highest resolution. Select Save Image in the top toolbar, then Map Options, and deselect all the options in a drop down. This will remove any text from the screen that we don't need, and then choose the maximum resolution from the drop down, or whatever your monitor can support. And then there's going to be some images that we need to create, and various other different things. So again, making sure that you're zoomed in as far as you can. Now it does say to go into full screen mode, so you would come up to view and then full screen. For me, that caused me some problems, because as soon as I went into full screen I couldn't access any of my other panels or anything else, so I wasn't able to then get to any other software that I needed to work with. And to be honest with you, the difference I think is going to be negligible, so I'm not going to bother with any of that stuff. So again, like I said, what you want to do is get in as far as you can. Something like that will probably be adequate. Make sure that you're pivoted in the right top down view, and that you are pointing true north. So make sure that's all set up. You just click on the little N on the compass here, and it will make sure you're pointing true north. And then we come up to this one here, this icon here, second from the right, and we go save image, which will do this. Then we go map options, and we deselect all of this stuff, so that it gets rid of all the rubbish that's around the side of the image here. And then from the resolution, maximum, or whatever your again, whatever your monitor will support, and that will give us a really nice clear image to work with. Now what I would recommend is, instead of using the mouse to move stuff around, you can use the keyboard cursor keys, and also the plus and minus on your keyboard to your numpad on your keyboard to zoom in and out. I found this much easier to get everything lined up properly, because trying to do it with the mouse was possibly problematic, because it would want to rotate and move the screen around by using the mouse, because just the left mouse button will not only pan it, but it will also make it do all sorts of other weird things, and it then went off center all the time. So using the cursor keys on your keyboard and the numpad plus and minus is my recommendation to zoom it into the kind of scaling that you want to get out of it and all that sort of stuff. So basically we're going to do that, and we selected the maximum for our resolution. So we're going to need 3 images for the border, and 3 images for the map DEM and overlays. So again, with the border stuff, we don't particularly necessarily need any of that stuff, so we can possibly ignore that for now. So check that in the items, check that all items in the layers panel of Google Earth are deselected. So if we come back over to here, make sure that all of these are deselected. The terrain one is not really relevant, you can leave that selected. All that will do is when you're in the main menu screen, I don't think it tells you in here that I remember, but there is with the terrain checkbox ticked, it will actually show elevation data, which you possibly may need to work out what your max and min heights are and everything else, to make sure that you're below the 255 maximum, and if you deselect terrain you won't get those readings come up. So entirely up to you if you have that selected or not, but it doesn't interfere with anything else on the on here, so you know, up to you. I'm going to leave it ticked, that's perfectly fine as far as I'm concerned. So now we need to drag our SRTM directly into Google Earth and then drop it on the map, and then at the Google Earth prompt select crop and center the yellow cursor over your chosen area, and in the new image overlay box select OK. So I'm just going to shift this to the left, to the right, sorry, slightly, and I'm going to open up my folder and get that out of the way, and I'm just going to drag this on and release, and it will then zoom all the way out, and it was doing some sort of flyby location thingamajigama. You can actually move this out the way, so just move it out the way and then click crop, and then with the actual yellow box here, click on the area that you've been working on like so, and the image will then be brought in and placed where it needs to be placed. and it will give you all the stuff there, and all you need to do is just click OK on that. That's perfectly fine. So now we have our SRTM in the correct place and all located and everything else. Fantastic. So with that placed, so if you're doing the border, you deselect and reselect the 6K marker, which we haven't created anyway. So I'm just going to work with the 2K one because I'm not doing the border in this particular video. So we'll deselect and reselect the 2K marker, which will then make it visible, because at the moment it won't show up. Because this is an overlay, so it's all just based around layers. At the moment the actual SRTM is the dominant layer, so by unticking and ticking the 2K marker, that now becomes the dominant layer, if you like, the uppermost layer, so it shows up over the top of the SRTM, and then we just put our thing back where we need it to be and zoom into the appropriate level. Something like that probably would be about as good as I'm going to get it, I think. Maybe. Can be a little bit fiddly to get this exactly where you want it to be. I think that's about as good as I'm going to get it there. Something like that. So once we've got into that position, we need to deselect our vertical and horizontal lines because we don't want those in the screenshot. So we just want our 2K marker border showing on here, as well as our SRTM, our height map, as it shows in the image just here. So it says if you have rotated your selection from north-south to make things easier to align the image up to the edges of your Google Earth as a guide. So like I've done here, I've got it roughly against there and across the top, so it looks pretty much lined up. North-south is looking pretty good to me. So at this stage you can save it all out as a KML file, so if you need to close down to Google Earth, you can reopen it again and everything will then be where it needs to be. So you could do that by just right clicking on the temporary places, save place as, find wherever you want to put it. So I'm just going to put it on my desktop, that's fine. And then in the save as type, change it from KMZ to KML and save. Pretty straightforward. So now, because I haven't added one, this yellow placement marker, if you have added one, make sure you deselect that. So in this temporary places, just take the tick out the box, and it will be invisible. It becomes invisible. But as I didn't add one, I don't need to do that anyway. So it talks about some files, because the Google Earth only saves as JPEGs. This is fine for the border, but it's not much good when you're working with DEMs and things like that, because we need a bit more higher definition, so we want to work with PNGs. So as I said before, I'm not going to do the border stuff for border stuff, so I don't need to worry about that anyway. I'm just going to be working with the PNG stuff. So throughout the following steps, ensure you do not move the Google Earth image after adjustment, otherwise you'll have problems with alignment in the image editor and you'll potentially have to start the whole process all over again. So once you've got it into position here, all you're going to be doing is selecting and deselecting things on the left hand side, and possibly like that, and then like that, and then like that, and like that, and so on and so on. You will not need to move this image at all, so don't move this from where you've set it. That way everything will line up later on when you get everything in the image editor. So we don't need to do the borders, as I said, so we're going to ignore that, and we're just going to move down to the SRTM stuff and the DEM stuff. I'm not going to do in this video the weight files either, because it's just going to take far too long to get into all that stuff, but you can all by all means read through this and have a play around with that if you want to. I might do that in another video again, as I say, along with the borders. So we reselect the SRTM and 2K markers in the places panel, and then Google Earth to full screen and zoom into the 2K area marker is as large as possible, and the left hand edge is aligned to the X of the save image box. Now when it talks about that, that's because of the resolution that WrinkleysRule has got his system set to, which I think is probably 4K. Now my monitor doesn't support 4K, so my actual left edge is never ever going to be over here, not in a million years. So don't think that, oh, mine's not actually in the same place. Don't worry about it. It's just based on the resolution that you've got your safe image set to. So just set it up somewhere like this. I would suggest more over to the right, but not off the screen obviously, which will become more apparent later on, possibly when you start working with some other things. Again, that is more to do with weight files and things like that, because you need to change some settings to do with the brightness and darkness of the image, and it makes other pop-ups come up on the screen which could then interfere with your image. But I would suggest to position it somewhere like this. It will possibly be in a different location to mine, again depending on the maximum resolution of your monitor. So don't take what it's saying here as gospel. You do not have to have the left hand edge aligned to the X on the save image box, which is this one here. You do not need to have it there. Just have it in a comfortable place for you where you can see everything lines up and it's pointing true north, south and whatever else, and you should be good to go there. This is all just a guide to help you out to get everything lined up. It's not written in stone as such. You can just move it around to whatever suits you, whatever you find is comfortable for your screen resolution. So now using the snipping tool in window mode, we're going to take an image. So we have our SRTM and our 2K marker selected and visible. So what I'll do is I'll minimize that one down, and I'm just going to go start, and we need to find snip and sketch, and then what we're going to do is go new and make sure that you're in Windows Snip, and then just click on the area and you'll get this, and then we go save and put it somewhere that's going to work for you. So you might want to create a new folder, possibly call this DEM, which is what I've been doing. Whatever is going to get what you need, and then just you need to rename this one. So this one will be, when we save it out, this is going to be saved as DEM PNG. So we'll save that out as DEM, and then make sure from the drop down here that you've got it selected to PNG and click save. So in the places panel, deselect the SRTM, and then using the snipping tool as before, this time save as GE.png. So we want to come back to here, let's minimize that. We want to go into Google Earth, deselect the SRTM, bring up the snipping tool, new, window mode, again make sure you're Windows Snip, and click, and then save this one and save that as GE.png and save. Yes, so the next part there where it talks about saving another one as roads, this is again to do with weight files, which I'm not going to get into in this particular video, so you don't potentially need that one either. You might not even need this one here, the GE one, to be honest with you, but that might work possibly for other reasons, so we'll keep that one and go with that one. But the roads one I'm not going to worry about, because I know that that is actually to do with weight files and stuff, which I'm not going to do in this video. This is primarily about setting up a DEM really. So continuing on from where we left off, creating our images for our DEM, going to now work with the image editor. As it says here in the tutorial by WrinkleysRule, Photoshop is used in this case, but I haven't got Photoshop, so if you have, then some of this will be a little bit more towards that software obviously, but I'm going to use paint.net and then switch over to GIMP for some other parts that I need to do to convert some stuff into grayscale and whatever else where necessary. It might not 100% be necessary, but we'll see how we get on with that. So I'm just going to use some different softwares and see what I get at the end of it, and then switch over to some different software if required. We've got our two textures, which is basically our DEM, which we're going to be applying to the map surface to give us all of our rolling hills, humps, bumps, and the rest of it. And then the GE one will be for our overlay, so that we can actually see what's going on the map, and then use that overlay to put in our fields and help with our roads and things like that, and where they need to be painted in, or objects need to be added, all sorts of things like that. So what we're going to do then is I'm going to open up paint.net, but what I want to do is I've got the two images, and I'm going to, well, we'll start with this one. It doesn't really matter in all honesty. We'll open up this one, then I'm going to drag this one in and add it as a layer, and then you can see we've got the two layers here, and they are both matched, as in the same location for our 2 kilometer grid, which is really important. So when we crop this, it will basically crop both of them equally, so that you're not going to get any bleed across any, or misalignments or whatever else from various different places that you don't want them to be, and all that sort of goodness. So in the actual instructions here, it says to do things a little bit different. It says to ensure your rulers are set to pixels, and then zoom to the left and mark the edge, and then do the same on the right, and then through calculation magic we end up with something like this, and that's going to be the size of our new image and the rest of it, and then we can copy that and paste it in, and then so on and so on. I'm not going to do that. That seems a bit long-winded to me. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to do this a little bit differently. So with this new layer at the top here, I'm going to go over to the paint bucket, and I'm just going to click in there like so, and then I'm going to go to the move tool here, and I'm just going to grab the corners here and just drag it across until it fits where I want it to fit. Now what you can do here, if you want to, is you can double click on here and decrease the opacity of it, so you can actually see the map behind it, so that might give you a bit more of a better kind of view of it, or whatever else. And then kind of just zoom in, so I'm just holding down left control and using the mouse wheel to zoom in and out to get me where I want to be, so something like that. And then you can do the same to zoom out, and then reposition and do the same over this side and zoom right in to where you need to be to get your line kind of where you want it to be and all that sort of stuff. So we want to get rid of the red square. We don't want that to be as a part of our setup, because the system will see that, especially when it comes to the DEM side of things, and it will then create some weird parts on our map, so we don't want that. So this might be a little bit experimental. You might have to kind of play around with this a little bit and do it multiple times to get exactly what you want from it. So we're going to bring this one up, and we zoom right in, and then get this somewhere lined up. Maybe something like that will probably be okay. And then we'll do the same with the top one here, so zoom out and then zoom back in again, and get really close in so you can see what's going on, and we'll get to somewhere like that. That should be about right. So making sure that this one is selected, and then what we're going to do is image, crop to selection, and this will then crop all of the images down to this size. This top layer can now be deleted, and we'll be left with our nice overlay image and our DEM all cropped with as minimal amount of red stuff on it as possible. If there's a little bit, that's okay, that doesn't matter too much. We can adapt that within the Giants editor and smooth out some of the areas which need to be kind of just played around with a little bit there, but you don't want big red, you don't want all of the red on there, because that will affect how the affect the height map in ways we don't want it to be affected. So now that we've got all of that sorted out and everything else, we're going to move on to the next part. So once we've got all that set up and we've got all the parts done there, we're going to move on down. So with only the DEM layer selected, we copy the file, create a new file, and then paste that into our new image, and then we flatten it out and rename it and resize it. Again, when we're going to do this, I'm going to be basing this around the Ravenport map because that's what the tutorial is based on. So it'll be mapus_dem.png. If it's Felsbrunn, it'll be mapde_dem. If it's modmap, then it'll be modmap_dem. You'll have to rename it to whatever's going to suit for your particular map that you're basing this on and whatever else. But like I say, for me this is great because I'm just going to go along with the tutorial and use the Ravenport map. Now it says here to scale it to 1024 by 1024. What we're going to do then is copy our DEM. So we want to highlight our DEM in the layers panel. The tick boxes are just visibility boxes. As long as we've got this one highlighted, so we click on it so it's highlighted like so in paint.net at least. I don't know about Photoshop, but as long as this one is highlighted, we can go Control C, Control N, which will bring up our new window, new image window, and we click OK, and then we can paste it in there like so. Then we go Image Resize 1024 by 1024 and click OK, and then we're going to save this one out. So we can just, for me, I can just take the name from here, mapus_dem, make a copy of that, come back over to my image file, and then just go File, Save As, paste that in, and then make sure it's PNG and save, and then just go from that. That's perfectly fine. And on this one here, we can now delete this layer because we no longer require that. So we can get rid of that layer, and then this one here we're going to resize to 2048 by 2048, I believe. We'll just double check that. Overlays. So yeah, resize the remaining image to 2048 by 2048, and then do the same thing again and name it 2K_GE. So this one here we're going to resize, image resize 2048 by 2048, click OK, and then File, Save As, and this one we need to name as 2K_GE. Make sure it's a PNG again, and then just click Save and OK. Okay, so next thing we want to do then is actually test this out, but we need a map to actually do that with. So I'm going to use Giants Editor to actually create my sample mod map for me. So I'm just going to open that up. I'm using 8.2.0, and I'm just going to go File, New Mod from Game. And the pop-up that appears can sometimes take a little while, so just be a bit patient for it to do its thing. And then we want to, in this particular case for me, I want to use the Ravenport map because that's what the tutorial is based on, and all the file names have been named appropriately. If you're not sure which one is which, because it just says sample mod map 1, sample mod map 2, if you look at the actual file names, so sample mod map 1, the i3D file is mapde, so this one would be for Felsbrunn, and then sample mod map 2, the i3D file name is mapus, so that's going to be Ravenport. So for me, I'm going to use sample mod map 2, and I'm going to click OK. I don't particularly want to put it in that folder, so I'm going to find a different folder. So I'm going to put it on my desktop, and I'm going to create a new folder. I'm just going to call this mod map, that's fine. And then we'll just select that folder, click OK. It's going to say working directory already exists, overwrite, we want to say yes on that particular case, and then it will just do its thing and give us our map. Like so. This can take a little bit of time as well, so just again be patient with that. So I obviously don't want all of this stuff on the map. I can bring all this stuff back in if I need to, or if I'm going to put my own buildings or whatever else on it, and trees and things like that can be re-imported as we need them. Whatever you decide to take off of the map, just go with that, because the roads are going to be specific to this map, so they're not going to be of much use for our new DEM or whatever else, because they are continuous. They're not they're one mesh, so they're not broken up or whatever else. So you're going to need something different there. You might want to use some of the buildings, but that's fine. You can just re-import them as you need them, and whatever else. Possibly the trees, you might want to keep the trees or some of them and just bury them under the map somewhere until you need them, or whatever else. Personally, I tend to delete everything. The only thing I tend to keep is the career start point and the fields. so that I have actually got some field definitions to work with, and then I could just relocate them where I need to. So I have to recreate the actual hierarchy within the scene graph. I just need to move some points around, but everything else I tend to get rid of and just re-import it as I need it. So I'm going to get rid of the boundaries because I'm going to need to create my own new one anyway. The tour icons or whatever that is, we can get rid of that. And all of this stuff down here, I'm just going to highlight all that. So click on the top one, left shift, and then click on the bottom one, and we'll delete all of this stuff. And then what I want to do also is flatten this out completely to start with. So I'm going to basically zoom right out like so, and I'm going to set my radius here to 1000 like so, and then I'm going to switch over to the square brush. I'm going to come up to the terrain sculpt mode, and I'm just going to actually I'll do this with replace. Let's do it with replace. So if I do it with replace, and I'm just going to set it to maybe 80, something like that, and I'm going to click and drag. There we go, that's better. We'll do it that way instead. That's a bit more efficient to flatten the map out. There we go, something like that. And then I want to get rid of all of the textures on here and just put it back to a base grass texture. So I'm going to switch over to the terrain photos paint mode, and I'm going to then change this back to add just so I don't forget. And then down here on our photos layer painting, make sure that's on terrain detail. Right click on your mouse and drag, and then this will remove any terrain detail to do with your fields and things like that, like cultivation, ploughed, seeded, and so on and so forth. Again, just be a bit patient with that, let it catch up and do its thing. And we want to remove any foliage, so I'm just going to select grass, and again I'm just going to right click and drag, and this will remove things like wheat, barley, oats, any kind of harvestable crops and whatever else we don't want on the map. For this, to create our sample mod map, we can add all that stuff back when we need to. So we're just going to do that. Again, just be a bit patient, let it catch up. Now you might find that there are some decorative textures and things like that, like the bushes and whatever else. They may use different maps, density maps, so you might have to go through some of these and select some different ones just to kind of get rid of everything. But you can quickly kind of just zoom into the map and have a look around and just see what is there. So you might find that there's stuff like whatever that is, that might need to go away. That might be a terrain texture though, thinking about it. So yeah, just kind of go around the map and just make sure that everything's gone away. And then what I tend to do here is just zoom back out again, and then on the texture layer, just switch it over to grass, and then come up to your terrain detail, texture paint mode, left click and drag, and just change everything back to base grass like that. That works for me. You can do it however you want to do that, and then just kind of have a look around and see what's there. I think we're pretty good, excellent, we're pretty clean there. So that's my sample mod map, completely clean, blank, and whatever else. I've just got my career start point and my field definitions that I can work with later on. So now I've got this, I can go ahead and save that. And we'll close that down. And it sometimes asks you to save it again. I always click yes just to make sure everything gets updated. And then we need to add in our DEM that we've created here for the area that I've based this on at the old Sodbury. So for me, what I'm going to do here, I'm going to go into Maps, Map US, and I'm going to take the 2K GE, which is going to be for my overlay, and also the Map US DEM. So I'm going to take both of those, Control C to copy them, come over here, Control V and paste them in, and then replace the destination file, which is going to be my DEM file down here, and then just refresh, make sure everything gets updated and whatever else. Fantastic. So we've now got both of those into there. And to just see what it looks like, we can open the map back up again in the Giants editor and have a look. And we end up with something like this. So there are possibly going to be some areas like this where the red line, if you don't get rid of all the red line, it can actually be included into the actual height map, and the system will recognize that and give you this. So either do a better job than I did by cropping when I cropped the actual image, or to be fair, you can just come in here, select your terrain sculpt mode, switch over to smooth, make your brush maybe a bit smaller, so something like 50, and then just go around the edge here and just smooth it down so it's, you know, not so up in the air like that, and just go around the old, you know, the edges here, and just, you know, get it a bit flatter again, something like that. And then do this one over here. And then this one. Because this is right on the edge of the map, for me it's not that important, to be fair. Now if you are going to experiment with the borders, creating borders, it might be a bit more important to get this you know, near perfect, because otherwise it won't match into the border properly. But you know, at the end of the day, things can be tweaked to make those line up how they need to line up, whatever else. So we've now got that set up. There's a couple of different things we do here, because it looks very much staircasey with all these steps and whatever else. Two things: you can either carry on with the smoothing tool, make your brush really, really big and just drag it over the whole map and smooth it all out, or with the DEM converter that's been provided by WrinkleysRule, which has been modified slightly, we can actually use that to give us a higher resolution on our DEM file. So go back to your items folder that you've downloaded, and in here is the Giants DEM converter. So if we open that one up, what I'm going to do is just basically move the DEM file and move it over, and then I want to convert this from 8-bit, well, it's RGB really actually at this particular point. So what I'm going to do is convert this to 16-bit grayscale. So all you do here is we've got convert from and convert to. I want to convert to, so I'm just going to drag it and drop it on the convert to. Screen will blink and you'll think, well, what happened there? Nothing happened. And if you're not quite sure and you want to just double check, you can either use Photoshop or perhaps maybe something like GIMP, which is what I'm going to use. So if I try and find that, and with Windows 10 I find things very complicated now, but we'll get this up and running. And then what we can do here is if you just drag that into GIMP or whatever program that will support it, up in the top here for GIMP, it actually now will say 16-bit and it says grayscale. So I know that it actually has converted it from an RGB to a grayscale 16-bit texture. So before we close down GIMP or whatever program that you're going to be working with, we're also going to add a filter. So I'm going to go up to Filters, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and I'm going to increase the radius here from 1.5 up to 5, so we can just go up and this is a bit tricky sometimes with this program, so I'm just going to go up to there and then I'll just type in 0 like that, and they are linked, so whatever I do to one will do to the other one as well on the X and the Y. So we've now scaled that to 5 and 5. We click OK. I'm just going to go File, Export As, and I can export this directly into my folder here. So I'm just going to go into Mod Map, Maps, Map US. It's already got the correct name and everything, so I'm just going to export that out and export. And we can close that one down, disregard the changes, and we now have our Map US DEM back in our folder, but now it's a 16-bit grayscale and it's got a filter applied to it. When I open the map again now in Giants Editor, it will all be nice and smooth. like so. So we'll still have all of our rolling hills and everything else as far as that goes. Now I don't particularly know if this area has got, you know, quite, you know, up and downies. I don't know. It probably looks very similar to this, I would imagine. And to be fair, once you start to get all your other parts in, it will start to look a bit better. Than it will start to look more like an actual map and a farm and all the rest of it. So now what we can do is bring in our overlay. So we have that also provided in the items folder, which is this overlay here. So we can just go file, import, and then go back to wherever you've got that saved to, items, overlay, and we'll bring that in. We don't need the light, so we can get rid of that. It also automatically comes with a texture, which is provided again in the items folder. So when you drag this up and you go, well, that ain't what I actually, that's not my map. Don't worry about it. It's because it's got the base texture applied that comes with all of it in the items folder here. It's using this one here, 2KGE. So ignore that and then just apply yours that we created earlier on. So you do that by just going into the window, material editing, and then up here just click on the little browse button and then go to wherever you've put it. Like myself, I've put it into maps, map US, and then it's 2KGE. Up to you if you convert it to a DDS. I'm not going to bother, so I'm just going to click no, and there we go. I've now got my overlay, and I will be able to apply that and work out where all my roads are and everything else, and what field dimensions and definitions I need to create, and set all that sort of stuff up. So what you can do now is use this as a rough guide and start to paint in your roads, just so you can get an idea of where everything needs to be, and perhaps maybe sort of, you know, mark out the edges of your fields and things like that, and so on and so forth.